Hi, everybody. It's Miss Amy, and I'm here to bring chapter 28 of Roald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach to you. Now, boys and girls, when we left yesterday, the characters in our book, James and all his friends, his creature friends, were celebrating again, but boy, they sure just barely missed that one. Silly old Centipede had to be a smarty pants and tease the cloud people, and then they started throwing hail at the Peach. They were almost goners. Good thing James thought about them to escape down into the tunnel, but poor Miss Ladybug, her shell got hurt. So let's go ahead and crack open to the spine to chapter 28. Now remember, boys and girls, Miss Amy does not own the rights to this book. She just owns the book, and she's glad she gets to share it with you. So let's go ahead and see what happens in chapter 28. One by one, the travelers came out again onto the top of the Peach and gazed carefully around. The moon was still shining as brightly as ever, and there was still plenty of huge shimmering cloud mountains on all sides. But there were no cloudmen in sight now. Whew, that's good, isn't it, boys and girls? Of course, they would have been safe if Centipede would have just kept his mouth quiet. "The Peach is leaking," shouted the old green grasshopper, peering over the side. "It is full of holes, and the juice is dripping out everywhere." "That does it!" cried the earthworm. "If the Peach is leaking, then we shall surely sink." "Don't be a bum." It doesn't say that. That's a fair warning, parent. It doesn't say that. That's that icky word they like to use in this book that Miss Amy refuses to use. And the centipede told him, "We're not in the water now." "Oh, look!" shouted the ladybug. "Look! Look! Look over there!" Everybody swung around to look. In the distance and directly ahead of them, they now saw a most extraordinary sight. It was a kind of arc, a colossal curvy-shaped thing that reached high up in the sky and came down again on both ends. The ends were resting upon a huge flat cloud that was as big as a desert. "Now what in the world is that?" asked James. "It's a bridge! It's an enormous hoop cut in half. It's a giant horseshoe standing upside down." "Stop me if I'm wrong," murmured the centipede, going white in the face, "but might those not be cloudmen over it?" There was a dreadful silence. The Peach floated closer and closer. "They are cloudmen! There are hundreds of them! Thousands! Millions!" "I don't want to hear about it!" shrieked the poor blind earthworm. "I'd rather be on the end of a fish hook and used as bait than come against those terrible creatures again." "I'd rather be fried alive and eaten by a Mexican," wailed the old green grasshopper. "Please keep quiet," whispered James. "It's our only hope." They crouched very still on top of the Peach, staring at the cloudmen. The whole surface of the cloud was literally swarming with them, and there were hundreds more up above, climbing about on the monstrous, crazy arch. "But what is that thing?" whispered the ladybug. "And what are they doing to it?" "I don't care what they're doing to it," the centipede said, scuttling over to the tunnel entrance. "I'm not staying up here. Goodbye." But the rest of them were too frightened too frightened or too hypnotized by the whole affair to make a move. "Do you know what?" James whispered. "What?" they said. "What?" "That enormous arch? They seem to be painting it. They've got pots of paints and big brushes. You look." And he was right. He was quite right. The travelers were close enough now to see that this was exactly what the Cloudmen were doing. They all had huge brushes in their hands, and they were splashing the paint onto the great curvy arch in a frenzy of speed. So fast, in fact, that in a few minutes the whole of the arch became covered with the most glorious colors: reds, blues, greens, yellows, and purples. "It's a rainbow!" everyone said at once. "They're making a rainbow! Oh, isn't it beautiful? Just look at those colors!" "Centipede!" they shouted. "You must come up and see this." They were so enthralled by the beauty and brilliance of the rainbow that they forgot to keep their voices low any longer. The centipede poked his head cautiously out of the tunnel. Tunnel entrance. Well, he said. "I've always wondered how those things were made. But why all the ropes? What are they doing with the ropes?" "Good heavens, they're pushing it off the cloud!" cried James. "There it goes! They're lowering it down to the earth with ropes!" "And I'll tell you something else," the centipede said sharply. "If I'm not greatly mistaken, we ourselves are going to bump right into it." "Bless my soul! He's right," the old green grasshopper exclaimed. The rainbow was now dangling in the air below the cloud. The peach was also just below the level of the cloud, and it was heading directly toward the rainbow, traveling rather fast. "We are lost!" Miss Spider cried, wringing her feet again. "The end has come." "I can't stand it," wailed the earthworm. "Tell me what's happening." "We're going to miss it," shouted the ladybug. "No, we're not." "Yes, we are." "Yes, yes." "No." Oh my heavens." "Hold on, everybody," James called out. Suddenly, there was a tremendous thud as the peach went crashing into the top of the rainbow. This was followed by an awful splintering noise as the enormous peach, come on, went crashing into the deep part of the rainbow. This was followed by an awful splintering noise as the enormous rainbow snapped right across the middle and became two separate pieces. The next thing that happened was extremely unfortunate. The ropes that the Cloudmen had been using for lowering the rainbow got tangled up with the silk strings and went up from the peach to the seagulls. The peach was trapped. Panic and pandemonium broke out among the travelers, and James Henry Trotter, glancing up quickly, saw the faces of thousands of furious Cloudmen peering down at him over the edge of the cloud. The faces had almost no shape at all of the long white hairs that covered them. There were no nose, no mouth, no ears, no chin. Only eyes were visible in each face, two small black eyes glinting malevolently through the hairs. Then came the most frightening thing of all. One cloud man, a huge, hairy creature, who must have been 14 feet tall at least, suddenly stood up and made a tremendous leap off the side of the cloud, trying to get one of the silk strings above the peach. James and his friends saw him go flinging through the air above them, his arms outstretched in front of him, reaching for the nearest string, and he saw him grab it and cling it with his hands. He began to come down the string. "Mercy, help, save us!" cried Ladybug. "He's coming down to eat us," wailed the old green grasshopper. "Jump overboard!" "Then eat the earthworm first," shouted the centipede. "It's no good eating me. I'm full of bones like a kipper." "Centipede!" yelled James. "Quickly bite through that string, the one he's coming down on." The centipede rushed over on the stem of the peach and took the silk string in his teeth and bit through it with one snap of his jaws. Immediately, far above them, a single seagull was seen to come away from the rest of the flock and go flying off with a long string trailing from its, what is it hanging from? Neck. Remember, they were all hanging. The string was hanging from its neck. And clinging desperately to the end of the string, shouting and cursing with fury, was a huge hairy cloud man. Up and up he went, swinging across the moonlight sky, and James Henry Trotter, watching him with delight, said, "My goodness, he must weigh almost nothing at all for one seagull to be able to pull him up like that. He must be all hair and air." The rest of the cloud men were so flabbergasted at seeing one of their company carried away in this manner that they let go the ropes they were holding, and then, of course, down went the rainbow, both halves of it together tumbling toward the earth below. This freed the peach, which at once began sailing away from that terrible cloud. But the travelers were not in the clear yet. The infuriated cloudmen jumped up and ran after them along the cloud, pelting them mercilessly with all sorts of hard and horrible objects: empty paint buckets, paint brushes, step ladders, stools, saucepans, frying pans, rotten eggs, ew, dead rats, bottle of hair oil. Anything those brutes could lay their hands on came raining down upon the peach. Wonder where they got the dead rats and the rotten eggs and all that. I mean, I guess my imagination could go to paints and brushes because they were painting the rainbow. But rats? Rotten eggs? Where'd those come from? One cloud man was very careful. Aim tipped a gallon of thick purple paint over the edge of the cloud, right onto the centipede himself. That can't be good, boys and girls. That's got to be painful. Look on the bright side, though. It's purple. It's my favorite color. The centipede screamed with anger. "My legs!" he cried. "They're all sticking together. I can't walk, and my eyelids won't open. I can't see, and my boots are ruined. Let's see. He can't use his legs. He can't open his eyes, so he can't see. You know, Centipede's kind of getting a taste of Earthworm's unfortunate stuff, huh? Let's hope he learns his lesson, boys and girls. You know, after all, Centipede is the reason all of these Cloudmen at the very beginning of chapter 27 got upset. Wasn't necessarily his fault on chapter 28, but maybe Centipede will learn a lesson. Let's see. But for the moment, everyone was far too busy dodging the things that the Cloudmen were throwing to pay attention to the Centipede. The paint is drying, he moaned. It's going hard. I can't move my legs. I can't move anything. You can still move your mouth, the Earthworm said. And that is a great pity. James, bawled the Centipede, please help me. Wash off this paint. Scrape it off. Anything. And that's where we end chapter 28, boys and girls, of James and the Giant Peach. We'll just have to stay tuned to chapter 29 to see what happens next. So if you're listening to this or watching this before bedtime, thank you for enjoying Roald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach with Miss Amy. And good night and sleep tight.